really close to the water. It's coming right up there sometimes. I hope I don't get washed away. Pretty day. Look at that. Switch the camera. This is down the beach. I mean, up the beach. Nice. Nice. Very, very calm today. That's Long Beach of the LA area. And here we go. And there's down the beach. Oh, there's only one surfer out there. It's popped out there. Stepped up. There's something clear. Water right in front of me coming up. Moving this way closer and closer. Okay, let's do it. I'm going to read the chapter today called Path of Wildness, which is the first chapter that I ever wrote in the book. I wrote this chapter in response to the emails that I would get, the letters and emails that I would get from people asking me how to have adventure, so to speak. You know what? I'm going to move this just over here. I'm going to move it in the towel. There, that'll be nice, like that. That's nice. Oh. Yeah, but people would write and they would ask me how to have a life of adventure, so to speak, right? And namely, what trick I had done to wind up in Japan doing all this stuff I did back in the softypapa days. And my answer was the Path of Wildness, which is easy to find. It's the course of a stream. It's leaves blown in the wind. It's beasts tracked through the brush and the direction of our first inclination. And I wrote it as simply an essay. Initially, it was going to be just something that I could cut and paste, with a little bit of personalization and send to people, because I was writing the same response over and over to all the people that would write to me and saying, how can I live a life of adventure? And I would write the same message over. Well, you do this. Well, I don't know how you can have an adventure, but this is how I did it. And I would write it out and did that and send. And then a couple of weeks later, I'd get another one and write the same thing out and send. I kept that up for a long while. And then I realized I keep saying the same thing over and over again. Maybe I should just write this out, and then when people ask me, I can say, hey, read this. And that's what I did. That became this chapter, The Path of Wildness, which then became the seed for the rest of the book, the rest of Going Alone. It's nice enough that I don't think I need socks, although my toesies are going to be cold now. So let's read it as far as I can. Wow, a whole bunch of pelicans, seagulls are coming in. It's just like the birds. This is chapter what? Even though it's the first chapter I wrote, it's not the first chapter in the book. Things grow up and around it like a plant growing up, right? Sprouts out one thing, and then before you know it, it's all over the place. So this is chapter number 6. 6, The Path of Wildness. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. So it begins after the preceding chapter with this little message right here. It's like a little bit that I wrote, and it says like this. Because remember, this is chapter 6, so there's already been some lead-in. It says, still there? It's in the book. It says, still there. Still there? I'm glad you've come with me so far. From this point, things may get a little strange. For what follows is my own report from the wild. First, I'll tell you about what I discovered in the wildness of Japan. Second, I'll relate what I found in the wildness of the desert. Both accounts are real. I hope you'll stick with me a little further. I promise you nothing in return. So I anticipate that anybody that reads this, there'll be a falling off, right? They'll get through the first chapter maybe. That sounds like kind of like a normal thing. But then the book starts getting a little weird, and people call it, what the hell is this? And then put it aside. Anybody that makes it this far, you're almost halfway through the book at this point. I'm impressed that you made it this far. I promise you nothing in return. And that really is a sincere promise, right? Because what you get as a result of going alone is literally nothing. I don't offer you any answers in this book other than a recommendation towards the resolve, towards society, family, fraternity, values that help to promote and fulfill the ambition of virtue, where virtue is simply whatever it takes to improve the well-being of thinking creatures. And here's the opening of the chapter. There's a little illustration here that my daughter wrote of the Path of Wildness. There we go. The Path of Wildness. Mustering the courage to live. And a quote by Nathaniel Hawthorne. Persons who have wandered or been expelled out of the common track of things, even were it for a better system, desire nothing so much as to be led back. They shiver in their loneliness, be it on a mountaintop or in a dungeon. Nathaniel Hawthorne. Outstanding. That's a quote from the House of the Seven Gables. Sums up my chapter nicely. This chapter was originally composed in Japan, before I began going alone in earnest. I wrote The Path of Wildness in response to the many young people who contacted me during my time as a Japan-based YouTube content creator. Young people dreaming of Japan, yet unable to muster the courage or resources to make their dream real, and writing to ask me how this trick was done and what advice I could offer to help them get away from whatever unsatisfactory life they were living. I responded with The Path of Wildness, which is a metaphor for courage and action, and a reminder of the risk of waiting too long, and a challenge in method for getting unstuck. And then the next section here is called The Path of Wildness. As I near 50, I am becoming increasingly aware that my situation is like a man holding his breath in a sealed container of water, with less than a minute of consciousness remaining. Now is the time to scratch something meaningful on the wall to share what I have seen and learned. And then there's a poem. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream. Leaves blown in the wind. A beast's track through the brush. And the direction of our first inclination. The path of wildness is an answer and response to a prescribed way of life, which may leave some individuals with a sense that their living is little more than a series of predetermined, step-like episodes between birth and death. The stages of living between these events, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, parenthood, and senior, are themselves natural and in accord with the needs of the species, and most individuals. Many find satisfaction in living this course, and to these individuals I have little to say. Others, though, long for something more, something innate, genetic, and seemingly calling. Adventure and change can give a degree of satisfaction and relief, yet even these may seem too tame, and the results often only temporary. To those who feel drawn to something beyond the entertainment and stimulation of senses, I offer a walk along the path of wildness. Don't bother penciling the event into your schedule, preparing a pack with goodies and supplies, or even inviting a friend along. For this experience is along the course of your first inclination, and you must surely always go alone. Next section. The problem. Life has no apparent meaning. That's the title of the section. My adventure videos on YouTube have produced a steady stream of email from people who tell me about the dreams they cannot quite bring themselves to live, and their fear of being alone, and feeling their lives do not matter. However, nobody ever says it that way, and instead they cloak these worries as simple life anxieties, or blame their trepidation and inaction on various personal or familial infirmities and challenges. They do this to convince themselves these simple facts are the true cause of their churning worry and hesitation. They attempt to avoid a deeper fear, a hidden threat which is more real and threatening to a quality life than any surface-level anxiety. It is a demon of sorts, lurking in the shadows of conscious thought, peeking with knowing eyes in the direction of our mortality, pointing a crooked finger at the hazy terminal point of our lives, while offering a suggestive grin that nothing will be found beyond. This thought, along with the weighty implication it bears that life is without intrinsic meaning, appears to be the more real and tactile cause of the concern I sometimes read in the words of those who write to me. I never point this out, though, as I suspect they prefer I go along with their bluff and humor them with a response in keeping with their stated concern. Reality, after all, can be a fearful thing to face. However, I will now attempt a more honest answer, reflective of my own life experience and sincere interactions with others. This light and living we now know offers a stark contrast to the nothingness we intuitively sense existed before our birth, and the same nothingness we fear a return to after life is done. In fact, this fear is far worse than a return to nothingness, as we are each capable of holding a vision of hell in our minds, more terrible and real than the worst damnation preached from any austere and authoritative pulpit. This greater terror is our sense that the universe can get along without us, that our life and living are of little real consequence in any way, and that our best efforts will account for little beyond the temporary comfort given to the handful of individuals we share and interact with before death takes us away utterly, permanently, and forever. This is the real terror so many struggle to avoid, which reason and honest inquiry coldly suggest as true. An abject fear of ultimate insignificance and meaninglessness in the face of the curious fact of temporary life in an otherwise lifeless universe. I do not understand why the thought of death, real death, absolute death, with no chance of recovery, salvation, or continuation, is more tolerable to some than others. However, I suspect this acceptance may relate to some level of comfort and familiarity with being alone. Not that anyone will be alone after death, as even the concept of alone then would be wishful thinking. Nevertheless, during life, if we can abide our own company for extended periods of time, then the thought of being without others, or ourselves even, after death, may somehow become more palpable and acceptable, a more familiar, intangible something, and somewhere less feared as accepted or perhaps resigned to. To such a person, a life without absolute meaning may be acceptable. Days, months, and years of striving to no absolute end, all right, and nothing to fear. To such an individual, the journey itself becomes its own purpose. The momentary satisfaction and good feelings connected with virtue their own worthy end, where virtue is defined simply as the pursuit of objective well-being for ourselves and others. Death then offers no transition, but is seen as a simple, final stop, a period and ending of effort and of striving, and of reflection towards understanding which yields nothing more than transitory and ultimately meaningless gain to ourselves and those to follow. But is this a bad thing? If yes, then it's understandable that many protest, recoil, and fly from such thoughts. But if no, then our breathing can relax as we measure each inhalation as one of the few we get, and use the fuel of this living to move our body and activate our brain in such a way as to create our own meaning in these passing moments, and to pursue objective goodness in the willful expression of perceived best ends. So what words can I say to those who write to me asking my thoughts regarding their worldly dilemmas, when my suspicion tells me their real concern is actually a fear of their own unimportance and the utter finality of death? In most cases, I will engage their most direct questions and give the best answer and suggestion I can, given my untrained and uncredentialed qualifications. I wish, though, that I could speak to them more plainly and tell them that their deeper fears are real, and then ask them to explain their terror for my own benefit, and then hear my claims, which I hope may benefit them. Perhaps then we could both gain from a more honest and humane inquiry and inquisition into facts than any civilized, restrained, or judicial discourse could provide. For my part, I am now prepared to lay my humble case before any who may care to hear. Next part is the preamble. And that's the preamble kind of part is done. Next part is the section called Opportunity, Available Light. So this is the message that I would want to say more honestly, because I would get those emails and letters from people. Email, no one ever sent me a letter. Email, and they would ask me about this, and I would give them the answer in accord with what their concerns, because I don't want to presuppose that they're actually asking someone something else, but even though I think the question is the deeper question that I just mentioned. So here's what I would say honestly to them, if I could. This is what I wanted to say to everybody, and I tried to fit it in whenever I would write, but here we go. Well, I would give it to them by actually writing this. I gave created this chapter, and then I would give it to them, so I was passing it along that way. Okay. Opportunity, available light. Mind is an instantiation of consciousness, formed of energy, organized within the brain along pathways designed of genetics and molded through the unique living of each individual. There is no soul in the sense of anything transcendental or eternal. The fact that our materials and energy are everlasting, having been used by others before us and destined for reuse by the yet unborn, is testament to the fact that our person is temporary and ephemeral. We are, individually and collectively, a brief, dim, and fast-fading spark and flash of material and energy in the darkening night of the universe. In this fact, we discover both our dilemma and great potential. The challenge being to remain upright in the face of our utter, fleeting insignificance, while engaging whatever meek will we can muster towards observation, reflection, and art, while the light and sound of the universe wash across our senses. That is exactly what I wanted to say. It's so nice to be so impressed with myself. But that is exactly, see, that's the thing that's going to make it so I can die at peace, right? Because I got my message across. That one paragraph there says it all. Without apparent purpose. Stop congratulating yourself. Without apparent purpose, we are left to decide for ourselves whatever meaning or significance should guide our days and actions. This is the great dilemma of the individual, which demands forthright acceptance of the facts of the observable universe, and withholds any complete explanation or guidance. You must stand alone. You must recognize your solitude. You must hold yourself upright despite unstable footing and the approach of death. You must withstand the awful winds growing stronger and control your trembling hands while strange howling emanates from the wilder places, and no trail or trodden path indicates the direction of safety. From here, if you can quiet the heart and gain control of your senses, overcome or learn to tolerate feelings of isolation, loneliness, and fear, then you will be prepared to make your own one-way path through the wild, the step where the weeds are tangled and small biting creatures lurk with hairy legs, slicing jaws, and venomous sting. This is your path to follow, a truly dangerous and terrifying route none has ever trod or may ever again follow. The light is faint now, and growing fainter as the evening and night of your days grow near. Follow the dusk and note the sights. Speak of what you see. Describe your world in painting, in writing or painting or photography or spoken word. Poetry especially is a natural and well-suited vehicle to capture this ever-declining experience. Walk your path, then observe, and then tell the story of your own brief, available light. That's exactly the message that I would want to give too, and the thing that I want to say to those so many that have written to me, and the so few that have actually done anything about it. The vast majority seem to just fade away. We live so afraid of change, and of all the things that come up in our mind, the what ifs, right? So very few actually do anything about it. next section is called Health and Exercise and Eating Well. Now, what I'm going to describe in here is my exercise and diet routine, and things have changed a lot. For example, I describe in here my breakfast. I don't eat breakfast anymore, but that's only been the case for half a year now. So I don't know. But this breakfast work, it was much better than what I was doing before. But not eating breakfast at all, just eating lunch and dinner now is a much better thing. Health, eating, exercise, and eating well. And a quote by, here we go, "Wisdom is an organized life," by Immanuel Kant. Your good philosophy depends upon your body, which relies upon your health, which rests upon the choices you make as to exercise and what you eat and drink. Devote some time early in life to an understanding of what makes good bodies, and then take care of yourself accordingly. What follows is a summary of my own imperfect exercise and diet solutions. I exercise daily. However, my exercise routine is light, easy, and requires little time. My base workout is a 15-minute pool swim. My swimming style is very low impact. I do a gentle breaststroke for 5 laps, and then another 5 laps backwards breaststroke, alternating these two styles between each lap. The backwards breaststroke is something a swim instructor taught me, and involves simply resting face up on the water like you would do with a conventional backstroke. So instead of reaching back over your head to do a reverse crawl, simply lift your arms to your sides while keeping your arms in the water, before then stretching out your arms to give a nice stroke until your hands are again at your waist, and your arms parallel to your body. This stroke takes a little practice, but when you have got it down, the process is easy. This swim is low impact and very relaxing, as you can look up at the sky while gliding gently through the water. I especially enjoy this swim in the evening at sundown, when I can watch the first stars twinkle into view as the azure California sky fades to black. When enjoying this backwards breaststroke, just beware you do not bang your head on the far end of the pool as your mind floats off with the clouds, as I've done many times. I don't have a pool to swim in anymore. I don't live in one of those nice communities in Irvine anymore, so I can't do this anymore. But that was a good years when I did that. I did that for years and years. As mentioned, my swim is my base exercise, and I do this every day. However, I also enjoy walking to provide a lower body workout. To this end, I typically walk between 2 and 4 miles daily, either spread out over several walks, small walks like a fast mile during my breaks at work, or one very long walk at the start or end of the day. If for whatever reason I need to skip some exercise, it will be my walk, as the swims are not optional and can only be missed for reasons such as illness or lack of access to a pool. Rain or cold weather are no good reasons to not swim, and I always used to swim no matter what the weather or what the temperature. I still walk every day, pretty much about the same amount, 2 to 4 miles a day. Now the next part here is my diet. I actually list out all the things in my diet that I was eating back at that time. I'm not going to read that now. You can read that in the book if you like. And then it talks about my menu and all that stuff. And I'll move on to the next section. So the next section is diet and exercise. Probably can skip those in the future. They're incidental. We all find our own way to good health. Action. Here we go. The Path of Wildness. But I put that in place. I put that bit about the health and the well-being about exercise in place because you really can't start to get your brain together until you first got your health, right? So you need a healthy body and to be able to then cultivate the life of the mind, which translates then into your life overall. Action. The Path of Wildness. Once healthy and in a position of understanding regarding the possible deeper fear and trial which makes life such a challenge to those who wish to live a meaningful life, as well as peace of mind when thinking of what apparently does not follow when life is through, you may then be ready to act in the direction of wisdom. Indeed, you may be prepared to rise to your full stature as a man or woman of reason, to apply this faculty towards the higher, perhaps seemingly more worthy acts of a well-lived life. This, then, is the time to step upon the path of wildness. And again with the proem. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast tracked through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. Do not mistake the concepts of wilderness and wildness, which are related yet distinct terms. Wilderness is a place commonly regarded as devoid of most human influence. Stretches of desert in the American West, the far reaches of the Arctic and Antarctic, and most areas of the Earth's oceans are good examples of wilderness. Few such places on Earth remain utterly untouched by humanity, though many are nevertheless quite wild, and capture the spirit and essence of regions where humans are more alien than familiar. Wildness, on the other hand, is the landscape of freedom. Wildness is less a place and more a region of uncertainty, risk, and very real danger. Wildness is a feature of wilderness, though it is entirely possible for a well-trained, outfitted, and prepared human to enter wildness without venturing very far to enter wilderness without venturing very far into wildness. However, those who step into wildness may do so without ever leaving their home. In fact, they may enter wildness from the comfort of their recliner or in the company of friends and family, though in practice, wildness is most easily accessed through wilderness, which is one of the reasons I have spent so much of my life alone in the outdoors. Why should someone venture into wildness? Why risk the danger, isolation, and fatigue of exploring alone, even among others, where chance or bad choices may leave you crippled or mortally wounded? There are several benefits, which vary in degree depending upon the character and interest of the explorer. The one benefit is of special use to all, as it grants to the user a most useful skill and habit, and which, through training, can transform the timid, fearful, and meek into brave, spirited explorers. That quality is simply the character of courage in the face of the unknown. I can't emphasize that enough. That's so true. And a willingness to step boldly into seemingly dangerous regions of ignorance and uncertainty, to confront our weakness and shortcomings in open field where neither can hide and must instead be viewed for what they really are, and once surveyed, then likely dismissed as unworthy intimidators, whom we order to stand aside and who stride past into the deeper darkness and cold. Not pride, nor impulsive confidence shall replace these fears, as these too cannot fail to fall away during our struggle through the wild places. Indeed, most superfluous human traits are vulnerable to being lost along the way, as the close-cutting branches, vines, and thorns pull away everything which sticks out from our person, and which is not essential to our truer character and inner strength. This is the singular gain and ambition of movement along the path of wildness, to wear away our excess, refine our better spirit, help us develop and maintain the courage necessary to live well, as long as the light continues to shine in our eyes. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of the stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast stride through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. I have described the path with the above words deliberately in order to leave clues in the commonplace experience of nature, which are easy enough to follow, and as a simple training of sorts for the more challenging foray of trust in our personal instinct. I have a reason for relying on instinct, though I understand that instinct is not always right, and in fact may often be quite wrong and dangerous. Nevertheless, despite the risks, instinct is something we all seemingly have, and a sense we can start with when doubt and uncertainty threaten to immobilize our movement. There are times for rest and times for action, and most of us can easily sense when change is needed, though sometimes we lack the will or conviction to make the first step. It is at times such as this that I recommend moving boldly onto the path of wildness. This is done by probing our immediate senses for a hint of which way to go, and as long as the urging does not cause us to walk off a cliff in our first steps and cliffs, of course, are figurative in many cases, then we should lift our foot and begin moving, or lift our will and push forward with thought, resolve, voice, interaction, or whatever form of human living might be involved. We move, we start, we have direction. It may not be the best direction, but courageous movement away from irrational fear or unwarranted timidity is often its own reward. And course correction can usually be made once we are underway. Once upon the path, the brave explorer should expect two things: danger and treasure. The first is very real and may wound, cripple, or even kill. Expect to emerge from your foray bleeding, lame, and perhaps a bit deranged for the experience. Yet a wholesome perspective might view such damage as nothing more than the expected price of discovering treasure where none like you has ever ventured. New explorers may hope, and likely succeed, in carrying away fresh wealth in the form of possessions, status, or acclaim from the lonely wildlands. These can indeed be had, in abundance in fact, though the glitter and sparkle of such tangible gain may appear as rust to those who go still further in search of the intangible treasures of mind and experience. These brave individuals will most likely return from their ventures exhausted to the point of collapse, pale with blood loss, and slightly mad from the close proximity they achieve to the source of the terrifying howling, which can only be heard in the most extreme frontiers of dark and bleak wildness. Their pockets will certainly be torn and empty, and they will be unable to speak clearly of the wonders they have seen, though this is less due to any defect in the speaker's voice, and more commonly as a result of the hearer's excess comfort and certainty, which blocks the ears to truth as surely as beeswax. I recommend applauding anyone who returns alone from the wild lands, whether they bear treasure in both arms or gleaming ear to ear within the broad expanse of a blessed mad smile. Do this, for each is a person of courage, someone who has broken clean of the quicksand of complacency and fear, and who is exercising those most rare and critical faculties of the human species: courage, freedom, and autonomy. That's you too, Trevor and Ron. That's you guys. But remember also that some who step upon the path will never return. Some will become lost. Others will die. Still more may give up and return by some secret way to rejoin those who, in fear, remain huddled together in warmth and comfort, and possibly some degree of lifelong despair. These are the things you can expect upon the path of wildness. Go then, when you feel lost. Step fast when you suspect your confusion or hesitancy are heeding some unworthy instinct and are born of the fear of suffering and not suffering itself. Move swiftly now in the direction of your first instinct. Call your best critical faculties to the fore and demand they guide your every footfall. Expect to tire and fall. Be ready to suffer. Understand that you may die, but know also that along the way, in every step and action, you are living the truest, most noble, and worthy venture of your life. And then the final bit, result, creating meaning. Those who venture upon the path of wildness will find a meaning of sorts in the energy, joy, and experience of living a life of courage, a life of periodic misstep, mistake, and failure, tempered with breakthrough, discovery, and understanding. Taken together, these qualities cause life to acquire a depth and character which is humbling, satisfying, and reassuring. Our living becomes a beautiful sum of many parts: sour, sweet, bitter, raw, and savory. A delicious banquet of days which fills our mind like a feast fills our stomach and gives us pause along the way, and in the end, to rest in sated comfort at the fullness of our life. Okay, the next bit there is the notes from my muse. I'm going to pause for just a second here. Stretch just a little bit. I hear people having fun out there. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. Got caught up. There's a fisherman, too. Well, these guys are having some fun. Go, buddy, go! Na 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 na. Oh, there's a guy. Na 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 na. He's way out there. That guy. Na 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 na. And a fisherman right in front of me. And photo people. And I saw a dog walk past or run past earlier. Did I fix the sound? Was it broken? Hi, tongue-in-cheek. Let's see. Maybe the sound was broken. I'll read the chat, the comments. Are you near an industrial park? It definitely sounds like power switching RFI or some radio transmitter. Huh. Hi, Rob. I'm 44, will be 45 in July. Thank you for the change in message. Oh, you're welcome. Omoshiroi. Oh, good. Thanks. Hi, Rob. Whoa, omoshiroi indeed. Indeed, to pick up this book one day, Danger and Treasure. Yep. Tongue-in-cheek. People are afraid of the wrong things. Ray, in A Walk Among the Tombstones. Yep. Tongue-in-cheek. Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts in the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. Tongue-in-cheek says Cypher Rage in After Earth. And now I fixed the sound. Yeah, I did. Okay. Well, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to stand up and walk around a little bit. So the next part I'm going to read from the Muse. It's at the back of the book. In the back of every chapter. At the end of every chapter, I wrote the main prose section, and then I had these bits and pieces that I would type out, kind of like inspirational moments that were happening in my life, and I realized they related to something, and then I collected those at the end of every chapter. They're called Notes from my Muse. They're little short paragraphs of blurbs, I call them, and you can tell them because they're offset in italics, and they've got tildes separating each one, and that is the what I'll read next, and it concludes the chapter. Yes, terrible interference. The mic must have not been fully connected to your recorder. Oh, that's too bad. I'm glad it's working now. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. Okay, let me read the last bit of this. Okay, notes from my Muse. I wrote the following verses during an early period of inspiration from my Muse. Now, the Muse, of course, is not real, right? It's just my imagination. While still living in Japan and so I wrote all this in Japan. Oh yeah, while still living in Japan and under the influence of the green, lush, watery, and very wild and geologically young mountains of the Japan Southern Alps. Well, let me change this. You guys can watch the surfers, right? Let's do that. Let's get a good look at it while I read this. Since well, the green, lush, watery, and very wild and geologically young mountains of the Japan Southern Alps. The words and phrases here are much simpler than what comes to me now in the desert, conveying less my thoughts about the great indifference which I had not yet recognized in nature, and more simply my paradoxical understanding that there may be no living after life is done, and that the universe holds no precious mandate for our lives other than to simply stay alive as long as we can, and perhaps to pass our genes into another generation. The words below were originally augmented with images, which you can see at the web address at the entry 7 of the book's appendix. So I wrote these are really simple, short and pithy. And then the stuff that came to me later in Japan was a little more in detail. Oh, there goes the guy. Let's see if he's going to get away. Go, dude! Yeah! Oh, he's nose digging in. Oh! Here we go. No dragons here. The way I'll distinguish, you can't read it, you can't see it, so you can't see the tildes that's offset everything. I'll just have a little pregnant pause between each section. No dragons here, only darkness. No more purpose than to outlive ourselves, and then really, not even that. I stand alone in the cold, confused, lost, yet content. Avoid excess certainty. Erect no edifice you're not willing to destroy. Biology informs me I'm corrupt and degenerate. Ignorance is my constant companion, ever at my ear, whispering nothing. Fearful musings are best. The howling always comes from further than you are willing to go. Remember, I wrote these stuff in Japan. This is before the desert, before the Indifference. All I was sensing at that time was a deeper wilderness where I could perceive the emptiness, which I had no idea really what that was at the time. And I gave it terms like the howling and the woodsman's cabin, Path of Wildness, all these things are kind of around. I don't fear being wrong. I fear believing I'm right. Death is comprehensible. That's why we hide. Your own face is fearful here. Every step I am from will. Meditate too long, and the way is lost. There's no need to venture outside to explore in wild places. Curiosity, reason, instinct, and courage are the sole necessities of adventure. Mount Wildness is a place more terrifying than here, more remote than where it is both. There are no fresh starts, only new steps. There are no bridges here, where streams are cold and fast. Mount Wildness is a landscape with fear, a truly dangerous place. There's a woodsman's cabin on the near slope of Mount Wildness, abandoned for many years. Now that's funny when I wrote that, because later when I came back to America, I went out to the desert, I found sample number 1, which fit the bill exactly for that description. Almost got it. After a certain point, we all begin to dissolve. The blessing of becoming lost. Ordinary light becomes strange and stranger still. Innocence renders the initial step unnecessary, for youthful movement is from the first intuitive, earnest, and seemingly irrevocable. Sometimes go where you do not want to go. Mount Wildness is a dark place, full of light. If you fear dark places, then stay where you are. Otherwise come, where none can be your. Let wildness guide, never trust it to lead, lest you never return. Move or stop if you are so inclined. Have courage for either action. Now remember, I was writing this stuff in Japan, and typically I would be out hiking in the mountains, like coming back down from the mountains, walking on some old farm road, and these words would just kind of come to me, and I'd type them out. It was very simple too, if you like, almost like hiking in a way, but no structure to it. Mind was filtering out of my mind, and I realized now that I was done in Japan because I'd gone as far as I could. Japan, I couldn't get any further there. The wilderness there was too alive. I needed a desert. So it's so funny that I can see that now reading this, that I had reached the end of my journey in Japan and I had to come here. The map of indecision. Any road can become the path. Time and distance must always impart change. Too long or far, and friends become strangers. Longer still, foreign, and longer yet, alien. The features on your face trace the course of the path. Attitude coupled with action cause the path to appear. Push into the haze, expecting nothing more than an opportunity to become lost. Faces become strange, too long on the path. Get busy before the curtain starts to fall. One step and you're on the path. Precedence is abhorrent to those upon the path. Those who stare very long at the light must surely go blind. Either course will do. The light is not an end. Companionship is a warm distraction. The path is outside, though not always outdoors. Tunnels aren't dark enough. Find another way. The path runs through the machine. Bridges aren't real. Find another way. A single step is sufficient. So true on that one, man. The way is clearer still under cover of night. Keep walking. The sun is setting after all. Boy, I remember writing that one. And here's a longer one. When I was 18, ideas flashed past my consciousness too fast and fleeting to catch or even properly apprehend. At 26, I squeezed them from my mind with crayons and loud music. Draw text. Only individuals can have courage, for the group can never truly be brave. If you ever doubt your way and question right or left, choose the darker, dense, and overgrown route, for this is where your ignorance is thick, and where passage will surely come at a price. Hey, oh boy, that harkens back to my decisions back in the day. Found wherever courage provokes another step. The path of wildness is a solution for those not seeking escape. That's true. The slant of sunlight and shadow also mark the way. Expect curves upon the path. Only life can traverse the path. The path of wildness is a hiking philosophy and a theory of adventure. I'd offer my hand as guide, only then we'd both be lost. Oh, I didn't read that right. I'd offer my hand as a guide, only then we'd lose our way. Only then we'd lose our way. I could have written that better. Shadows lie along the path. Shadows point the way to darker. Point the way, the darker the better. The path of wildness is purely secular and in no way spiritual. Biology is the defining and controlling factor. There is no sentience guiding our steps, save perhaps the collective experience encoded in our genes. Thoughts grow feral on the path of wildness, linger long. I expect to die here, and soon. Now, of course, I wrote that 10 years ago. I mean, I wasn't planning to die. I mean, what I meant by the soon was, in the course of my natural life, even if I make it to 85, that's soon. It's going to be here before you know it. I'd like to share with you a great recipe for solitude, and in so saying, I was recommending, to live in earnest, right, rather than to wait. I'd like to share with you a great recipe for solitude. Simply talk, act, think, or believe unlike others. Beware the far side of Mount Wildness, where our words become babble. The only streams here are cold, fast, and treacherous. So I'm describing now in these various things, the various landscape of the Path of Wildness. There's a big set of waves coming in. Let's see if any of these guys get it. There's an even bigger one behind you, bud. Okay, come on, guys, go for it. Nope. There's a howling on the mountain, something worthy of fear. I fear no social circumstance, for I've been to Mount Wildness. There's a howling in the darker brush. The old shack at the end of the road. To walk the path is to enter on life, making life into an adventure. The frontier of relevance. Any road can become a path if your step is resolute and your thoughts quite alone. You and I are dissolving day by day. Now, the stuff that I wrote here, this wasn't necessarily intended to be part, like you don't read it like a book, right? So my favorite books are the books that I keep with me. Like I kept a copy of Walden with me absolutely forever. I carried it around on all kinds of adventures. I kept the Grapes of Wrath by my bedside for ages and ages, books like the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, others, and I would just open them randomly to kind of get a bit of juice, kind of like a little bit of inspiration, a thought. And that's kind of what was intended with this. It would be, because it peppers the book, these notes, the muse section kind of peppers the book. You can just open it up and get read a little snippet, and it's intended to be a little punch. Oh, there you go. Yeah, nice ride. Woo! Here comes the board. Woo-hoo! This board's coming in. I'll grab it if it gets here. That was good. Looking good, bud. Yeah, the board gets here. Little gets beat up on the sand. Bloody foot right here.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was bad.
I get you just right here.
Yeah. Hey, have fun, man. Oh, what fun. God, I remember being that age and doing the same thing, same place. Yeah, there was a guy here yesterday. I was here, and he came walking out screaming. Ah! He was hopping like this. And I walked up to him. I said, "Did you get nailed by a stingray?" He said, "Yeah." And he showed me his foot. And it got him on the top of the foot. And they are so painful. And I offered to give him a ride to his home, but he said no. He had his bicycle right up there. And he literally got on his bike, and he took off down the street screaming, "Ah!" They are so painful. Okay, any road can become a path if your step is resolute and your thoughts quite alone. You and I are dissolving day by day. Dissolution is genetic, bodily, and seemingly essential. Do, make, and say what you must before everything turns to sand. There's a sea below Mount Wildness. A howling thing roams the woods, and a woodsman's cottage on the near slope. Now, I never really could figure out what I was meant by that, putting a sea by Mount Wildness. Now, remember, I wrote this in Japan before the desert. I didn't know I was headed to the desert. I guess the sea is the emptiness, the void. You know, the desert is a sea of sorts. I'd rather not know by instinct without a thread of honest reflection. Trails or courses. What trails do you follow? What paths do you blaze? Honest virtue requires no accolade. Suppress or ignore appetite. We're all crippled and suffering. Hesitate long, and the path will be gone. Practice your art. Paths are formed by instinct. Trails by consensus. Ooh, feels good, the salt water on the hand, and it smells good. I'm making a sign on the frontier of Mount Wildness. My hope is that it will keep travelers safe, but not too safe. The darkness is repelled by courage. Step towards it and it moves away, though one day it will not. Return by another way, an unknown way. The course of your first inclination is nothing more than a catalyst to action. They're all dying words. Make them count. Play a bit longer outdoors before you at last must go in. Abandoned paths everywhere you look. Fast movement hinders progress. Sanction is petty compensation for a lifetime upon the straight and narrow. You are not on the path if the way is very easy for very long. The most fearful thing is the distant howling. The path is fearful and dark. Failure is tolerable. Light your own way up the slopes of Mount Wildness, where the dawn never comes. Birds always fly along the path. Leaves always blow along the path. If you are ever uncertain how to start, simply follow the leaves and tread in the direction of bird flight. Father and son can walk the path, just never together. The surest sign you've left the path is when you meet another along the way. And the last one. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream. Leaves blown in the wind. A beast tracked through the brush. In the direction of our first inclination. That's the end of that chapter. The first, and in some ways the concluding chapter. The rest is just the rest of that book is just building upon that. It pretty much says it all the message that I wanted to say with writing Going Alone. Okay, let's wrap this up. Let's see. Any new comments? A lot. Okay, so tongue-in-cheek says, who really knows, carrying on from where we left off, who knows if your muse is your imagination or, okay, seems like your mic is disconnected now. Oh, no. And my experience in of isolation chamber was perhaps the closest to meditation I have experienced. And while the idea is not to have stars to see, it is an experience. I recommend you try it before leaving California for Japan. My guess is you're using a separate receiver for your mic connection to the camera. Either the connection is loose and the camera uses its inbuilt mic sound, or the C is recorded, or a wire in the cord is broken. There's a presentation by Carl Sagan where he presents the history of the cosmos as 1 year on a calendar, the history of humans in the last second of that calendar. Yeah, I've read that one. Yeah, you have a loose wire somewhere. Oh, well. Well, thank you all for joining me. And let's take one last look at the beach. The water feels so nice. It's like this really delicious temperature right now. Tempted to go in, but I'll come back in the afternoon and maybe take a swim. I'm gonna go home now. My wife should be getting up, and we'll start our day. I wish you all the best. Thanks for joining me. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care. Oh, okay, there's the comment. Great sound now. It's in your hand, etc. Check all connections. Dust loose. Oh, okay. Thanks. I appreciate the feedback, letting me know about it. Maybe I don't have something quite plugged in quite right. It's possible. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a great day.